Hey everyone, so I'm obviously shooting a bit differently today. I'm sitting in front of my new green screen. I have no idea how this is going to show up while I'm filming this, so hopefully it looks okay when it's projected to you guys. So I'm also filming off my iMac, my new iMac, just because it's easy and I really wanted to do this video tonight. So the reason that I'm doing this video is because I haven't actually seen anyone in YouTube make a video about this subject, and it is something that I've been asked about a lot, and I think that it's something that should be talked about. If you do beauty or style videos on YouTube, people assume maybe things about your lifestyle, and it's probably a lot different than reality, and I just really want to share with you my experiences and how hard I found it to move out of home and move states and start again, because I think that it's good to show that real aspect in my channel, which is something I've always kind of endeavoured to do. Like I said, I haven't seen a video to do with moving out of home or starting again or moving states on YouTube. I had a look around and there wasn't really much on the subject. I'm not an authority on the subject, obviously, but I'm not here to be an authority. I'm here to share my personal experiences with you and hope that you will get something out of this video. So basically, I moved out of home about two and a half years ago, and as many of you know, I used to live in Western Australia, and I moved from Western Australia over to here, Melbourne, Victoria, and I basically started my life again. And I don't think many people realise that I actually knew pretty much no one in Melbourne. In fact, I had one friend here who I knew off the internet and had met a few times, but other than that, I left my family behind, I left my close friends behind, you know, my uni friends, and yeah, it was a big move, especially since I hadn't lived out of home before. So I really hope that I can share with you my experiences, and through my learning experience, give you some tips. So the reason I moved is because I guess I'd lived in Perth my whole life, and I do love where I come from. I'm proud of where I came from, but it was not the kind of city for me. As a creative individual, I found it was quite limiting for me, and I was just ready to make a move and to get out. So I did put a lot of time into planning my move before I left. So I thought I'd firstly talk about if you're planning to move to a different state. Now, if you're planning to move to a different state or a city or even a different country, really do your research. Make sure that you are well prepared, because I don't think it's the kind of decision you should make a rash decision on. You really need to think things through for your own benefit. I moved over to Melbourne after I started planning it because I just finished my university degree and I'd just come out of a fairly long-term relationship, and I decided that it was my time to kind of leave and move on. So I planned for about 6 months before moving over, and I just started by, you know, obviously saving money, just really thinking about what kind of area I wanted to live in, if I was going to live alone or if I was going to share, and how I was going to move my stuff over, all that kind of stuff. So I did put in a lot of time before moving. I also did move over with a job. I just had like a little part-time retail job in Perth, which I then moved to the same company over in Melbourne, so that was good. It's really good if you can to come prepared with some employment in the new city that you're moving to. If that's not possible, then I would really suggest having as much money saved up as you can, because when you go from living at home to starting paying rent, it's a bit of a shock. So you really want to make sure that you're prepared so you don't have to, you know, shift all the way back to where you came from. So I really recommend, trying to get some kind of work set up before you leave, no matter what it is, just so that you can kind of get on your feet. I really planned moving my stuff over. I obviously have a lot of stuff. You guys have seen my apartment, and I went through a company called Pack and Send in Australia. I'll give you the details of the company because I was really happy with their service. I can't remember how much it cost for me to move my stuff over, but make sure you move your stuff with a reputable company, that they pack your stuff securely, especially if you're someone like me that, you know, loves your clothes and things and you would hate for anything to happen to them. So really make sure you research before you move your stuff over. So if you're moving to a new state or a new city and you don't really know anyone there like I did, it can be really, really hard. So for me, I found my way of coping with that was I got a job which was quite social at night. I became a door girl in a popular club in Melbourne, and through that I made a lot of connections and I started networking and making new friends. And now living here for over 2 years, I have more friends than I ever had in my whole life living in Perth, which sounds crazy, but I guess this is just the city for me. So if you could get some kind of hospitality work, or if you can kind of get a hobby, like some kind of social hobby where you're put in the position where you'll meet new people, that's a really great way to meet people. If you do something like dancing, which I'm actually going to start doing soon, or if you're interested in art or music or whatever you're interested in, just try to get involved in like a group of people with similar interests. So that's a great way to make friends if you move to a new city. So like I said, I had to decide whether I was going to live alone or if I was going to share, and I ended up deciding that I was going to live alone. Now that's not a decision that a lot of people would make. It's not for everyone living alone. Definitely not. And so I'm going to run through the pros and cons of living on your own versus living in a share house. Now, the pros of living alone is that you have your privacy, which is a big thing for me. I'm very much like, I'm a social person, but I do love my privacy. So the great thing about living alone is obviously, you know, you've got your own place and you can do what you want, and, you know, at the end of if you have a bad day, you come home and you don't have to worry about anyone else's problems. Another great thing about living alone is you can do what you want. So if I want to walk around my house naked, I can. If I want to cry over The Notebook and similar romantic comedies, wondering if I'm going to spend the rest of my life alone, I can. If I want to gorge myself on pizza and junk food and get dressed up and stay home and dance on my bed to the Clueless soundtrack, I can. You get the idea. You can just do whatever you want, which is really, really great. Another thing that is really great about living alone is you can have your place exactly how you like it. You don't have to worry about other people's tastes. I'm sure that my taste is not everyone else's tastes, and most people would not want to live in my technicolored wonderland of an apartment. And I can, because I'm the only one that has to put up with it. Another thing is dealing with housemates' issues, like their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their drummers, whatever. You don't have to worry about it. So I guess that's some of the main things, is just that you have total control over your space. Now, the cons of living alone, number one is that it's expensive. It's very expensive. Not just having to pay more rent, but especially when you're setting up and you're putting all this money into things like utilities, and I don't think, which I'm going to get into a bit later on, but basically setting up the apartment at the beginning, sharing food costs, rent, bills, you know, it's a lot more expensive to live alone. So that's definitely something to consider if, you know, you don't have the income coming in where you can cover that. With being alone comes, of course, little spells of loneliness. As someone that is single, moving here, I won't lie, my first 6 months here were probably the toughest of my life. I went through some difficult kind of friendships, and I had no family here or no support network, and I lived alone. I had no one here, and there was times when I thought, you know, what the hell am I doing? And it was really, really hard, but I'm glad I went through it because it's made me so much stronger as a person. And I now know that if I had a job opportunity in America or UK, I know I could pick myself up and move and do it. And that is invaluable, to have that kind of the feeling that you can do whatever you want to do and you're self-reliant, but it is hard. Another thing about living in a share house is you're probably going to have a lot more space than I do. One-bedroom apartments or studios tend to be pretty small, so even if you're sharing with someone, you probably are living in a bigger place. So that's something I want to talk about in another video, kind of utilising your space if you do decide to live alone, because it is possible, but you will have less space. So I can pretty much guarantee that. And then lastly, like I said, you don't have anyone to rely on with sharing with someone, so you don't have to rely on someone to pay their share of bills and stuff. But that also means you don't have someone to rely on if you, say, lock yourself out of your apartment, or you have a really bad day, or some kind of disaster happens in your life. There's not going to be someone there to help you, and that is something that you have to realise if you live alone, that you can pick up the phone and call someone, but there's not going to be someone there like all the time. So if you do decide to live in a share house though, I would really suggest thinking through who you decide to live with, that you can live with that person. And you may be really close friends with someone, but it doesn't mean you're going to live well with them. You have to make sure that your personalities are going to work well together in a house, and that you're the kind of person that can kind of make compromise and things. I'm only going by what other people told me because I've never personally lived in a share house, but I guess even if you live at home, you go through the same kind of things with your parents. Next, I'm going to talk about finding a place, because I think that there's a lot to consider when you're looking for a place. Definitely don't rush into moving into a place without doing your research first. So I spent a good few months looking on realestate.com before I found the apartment that I wanted. I got really lucky when I moved over to Melbourne, because I did get the apartment that I wanted. And in saying that, if you are going to look into getting an apartment, make sure that when you show up at the real estate agency or whatever, that you are well presented, that you are, I didn't show up like my usual self. I wasn't wearing like a blue wig, and when it comes to situations like that, the fact is that you have to look like you are mature enough and responsible to rent this apartment. And even though I am, despite what I look like, I think it's a lot easier just to make it easy for them and just wear something kind of dressy, formal and simple. So that's what I did when I went to my real estate agents. I just acted very mature, like an adult, have proof of my income, all of that. It's really important, because it can be hard to get into a rental, but if you come prepared and you're well presented, then I guarantee it'll make it a lot more of an easy time for you. If you're looking to share, I've heard really good things about the website Gumtree in Australia. So if you're moving to a new city and you don't know anyone and it's the best option is for you to live in a share house, then you can often find out about good places on Gumtree. So I will list all these websites in the bottom bar when I'm finished. Next, I'm going to talk about inspecting the place and the area. So before you jump into the apartment and you get it, even if you know that you can get it, it's really important to check these things out, because you want to make, if you move and you decide that you don't like where you're living and you have to move again, it's costly both on time and financially. So make sure you really look into it before you move into a place. So the first thing that I did was, when I found the apartment that I was interested in, I really checked out the neighbourhood. Now there's a few things that you should be looking out for. You should be checking that it is close to public transport if you don't have a car, or that if you do have a car, there's plenty of space that you can park your car, that you know that you will always be available to you, that it is easy enough for you to get to work, that it will not take too long. It's really great if you have things like post offices, chemists, and a corner store near you, because you may not think that's important, but it really is, because if you have that on the corner from you, it's just so much more convenient. I have an IGA really close to me. I have all the post office and everything just around the corner. I have a liquor store around the corner. It's fantastic. It's really good for me because it's convenient. You also kind of want to see if there's things that appeal to you. Like, I live pretty much in the city, but I live opposite a beautiful park. So something like that is very appealing to me. So that contributed to me choosing the apartment that I live in, which I've now lived in for over 2 years. I also, as someone that is, as a single female, I think it's really important to live in a neighbourhood that you feel safe in, that, you know, you like the feel and the vibe of the place. You don't need to really analyse it. You'll just know if it's like a safe neighbourhood, that it feels right to you. And walking around the neighbourhood, I found it, like, compared to other places I checked out, I felt really safe, and I've never had any issues with where I live. So if you are living alone, especially if you're a female, just try to make sure you check out the neighbourhood and you feel it's safe. Even if you go back there at night and you have a little walk around, things like that, you're going to be living there for maybe a long time, so it's definitely stuff to consider. And another aspect, of course, is the affordability of the area. Now, a lot of neighbourhoods are really hyped up as, you know, they're very expensive areas. I got lucky because my apartment is kind of based on a suburb that's really, really close to the city, and it's pretty much a city, but because of what it's classified as, it's a lot cheaper than if it was a city postcode. So if you look for things like that, you can often get a bargain if you get something that's even the neighbourhood over. It can be a difference of like 10 minutes walking, but it might save you a lot of money in rent. Now, when it comes to inspecting the actual apartment, don't be afraid to ask any questions to the person that's there with you. Really check out the place. Don't be embarrassed about it, because, you know, you're paying for this at the end of the day. So first thing, again, security. Make sure that the locks on the doors are really secure, that the windows are secure, that the block itself or the unit is well lit, that the security to get into the building is safe and well lit, that the lobby is safe. All these kind of things you really need to check, because, you know, you don't want to risk your place getting broken into. You want to really check things like security. The next thing is checking that if there's any appliances that are included with your apartment, that they all work fine. So, for example, my apartment came with a microwave and a fridge, so I checked that those things worked. Also do things like check the taps, make sure that the lighting works, that the natural lighting is good. You just want to inspect the apartment in general, so have a look at, are the walls damaged, is there any water damage, because that is a bad sign if you see any kind of water damage on the floor or anything like that. Go through the kitchen, make sure that the actual living space is decent enough for you. So for me, even though I live in a small place, I still have decent closet space and I have a decent bathroom, and they're two things that are important to me. So whatever is important to you, if you want a large kitchen, make sure that there's enough space for you to use that kitchen. Can you imagine yourself living there and using that kitchen and it being of value to you? The other things you want to check are, for example, aircon, heater. If those things are built into the apartment, make sure that they work fine before you sign the lease. There may also be things like included facilities in your building. So that's a really great thing to look into. For me, I have a laundry on my floor, which is great. I don't have to go down to a laundromat and take my washing there. Another thing is I have a gym and sauna built into my building. So those are things that are great for me, included in my rent price. So keep an eye out for things like that, especially having a laundry really close to you, because that's something that's you're going to be obviously using a lot. Now, before you sign your lease, make sure you read over it thoroughly. If you're not sure about anything, ask questions. If you're still not sure, ask your parents or ask someone that knows about this kind of thing, because you want to make sure that you're 100% positive about how the lease is going to work, how long it's going to run for, what rent you're up for before you sign it. So that's something that you've got to be really careful about. Now I'm going to get into costs. So, of course, the number one cost in moving out of home is paying to live out of home, your rent. Now, before you sign the lease again, you need to make sure that you can afford the rent that you're paying, that it is going to be covered with the work that you're doing. You don't want to struggle. So for me, like, I do all my creative things and that's what I want to do long term, but I also have a part-time day job that I do to pay the bills, and I also have a job in a nightclub still. So I combine all the different things I do so that I can make ends meet and I can live a comfortable lifestyle, because I don't want to struggle. So make sure that you have the money to pay your rent every month. and your rent must come before anything else when you move out of home. This is with the whole maturity of moving out of home, accepting that your rent has to be paid every month on time, and you have to have that money there. It goes before anything, goes before other bills, it goes before just anything. You have to pay your rent on time. Now, when you first move into a place, like I said, it's more expensive if you live on your own, and there are a lot of upfront costs that you don't realize about until you move out. Now, that's stuff like towels, hand wash, toilet paper, kitchen utensils, a kettle, toaster, cleaning supplies, all these kind of things that you don't think about. Before you move, make sure you've provided yourself with enough money to cover the costs of all those things, because you will need to pay for them, and yeah, you don't want to be left short and not have toilet paper or something like that. Now, when it comes to food and cooking and things like that, I am not a health expert by any means, and how you kind of work your meals is going to vary whether you live alone or you share. Now, if you share, it's a lot easier to make meals for 2 or 3 or whatever, and you can make big meals like that. Now, for me, living alone, it is not cost effective for me to cook up some huge meal every day, because the cost of putting the ingredients into it, work out that I have all this leftover that I don't eat, and it is not cost effective for me to live like that. In fact, most of my meals I eat out, and if I don't, I pick up like Chinese takeaway, or I eat a lot of lean cuisine and microwave meals. I know that's not great, but I try to eat quite a lot of veggies. I try to keep fairly healthy, but it's not cost effective for me to cook huge meals in my apartment. Plus, I don't have the space. You can, however, cook some basic meals. If you want to go and get recipe books, just go to the library and borrow some out. There's often, quick and easy cookbooks that are available just to learn. If you don't know how to cook, is a good way to start. When you're doing your actual food shopping, you want to do things like check the prices, compare brands to other brands, go for the generic brand if it's pretty much the same as the more expensive brand, because you have to do that kind of stuff when you move out of home. You have to go for the generic brand, or you have to go for the cheaper option a lot of the time. If that means that you're eating well and you're having a slightly inferior product, then that's fine. You just have to work out what is important to you. I've done a video on budgeting. I will provide it to you down in the comments bar, but yeah, that's basically it. Try to keep healthy, try to keep the costs down. Depending on whether you're living in a share house or you're living alone, your lifestyle of how you eat will change. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is things like maintaining your house, repairs, cleaning, things like that. If you're living alone, like I did, I learned a lot of things when I moved out of home to do with repairing cracks or holes in my apartment, things that go wrong, mice. I had a mouse in my apartment and it was freaking awful. Learning how to do your laundry, learning how to do cleaning, things like that. You need to learn this stuff. And I would recommend this book. It's called The Bust DIY Guide to Life. And in it, they go through home repairs, regrouting your shower, cleaning, different cleaning things, organising, all that kind of stuff. It's also full of lots of DIY projects and things like that. I got it from Dimmicks, and I'll give you guys the details of that book, but this was very handy for me. Yep. So I guess that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions about any of this, just let me know. I just pretty much wanted to cover, the main things, but if you have any questions to ask me, just let me know. I hope this video was of some help to you, and I'll speak to you guys soon.